"Room 2C?" the man in the suit said, loud enough for the whole gallery to hear. "Must be his second home," a few chuckled. One woman coughed to hide her smirk. A teenager pulled out her phone and snapped a photo. No flash, just the quiet click of casual cruelty. The old man didn't flinch, didn't turn, just blinked once, slow and measured like someone used to being seen without being noticed. His name lit up on the docket screen overhead. Morgan, Clayton, Veterans Shelter, Room 2C. Yellow block letters, a warning, or a punchline. 30 minutes. Earlier, Clay Morgan had walked through the courthouse doors in 2 coats and silence. The cold didn't bother him. The stairs did. But he moved slow, not from weakness, but the practiced rhythm of someone who'd spent years measuring steps. And pain. The bench creaked under his weight as he sat, folding his arms in tight. His boots, army issue from another war, left faint outlines across the courthouse tile, ghost tracks that no one followed. He pulled out a battered wallet, edges frayed, stitching split. The plastic ID inside had once been blue, now it looked like something dredged from a gutter. He handed it to the clerk like it still meant something. The kid behind the desk held it up with 2 fingers, as if afraid. It might disintegrate. "Name?" Clayton Morgan. Tap, tap, tap. Keyboard clicks. Smirk. "You're up. Sit tight." He didn't nod, just took back the card, returned it to his coat with the care of folding a flag. Layer 1. Canvas jacket, faded green, elbows patched with brown corduroy. Layer 2. Navy peacoat, 3 buttons missing. Both smelled faintly of dryer sheets and institutional soup. In his pocket, his thumb found the medallion. Small, metal, smooth with time. From Da Nang. A medic gave it to him, a medic who didn't come home. Across the room, someone whispered to their wife while glancing at his boots. She didn't respond, just clutched her purse and shifted away. Clay didn't look up, just opened, the paper beside him, Ashfield Gazette. He knew the headline already, "We forget the ones who fought." He read it again anyway, not for the words, he'd lived them, but because someone younger had remembered long enough to write them. The bailiff appeared. Big gut, bigger sigh. Clayton Morgan. Clay stood slowly, joints grinding like old gears. The charge? Loitering. Outside a courthouse vent in 30-degree weather. He didn't argue, just said softly, "Veterans Shelter, Room 2C. "You've been cited before," the clerk muttered, from the back row. "Better give him a punch card. One more visit, free coffee." More laughter. Clay didn't hear it, or maybe he did. But he'd heard worse. Artillery, screams, the silence after, and that silence was coming. That name. It shouldn't have stopped her cold, but it did. Clayton Morgan. Judge Evelyn Shepard stood frozen in the doorway of her chambers, one hand still on the brass knob, the other gripping the docket folder like it might slip from her grasp. It was just paper, ink, case numbers. A loitering citation. But that name, Morgan, Clayton, hit like a punch to the sternum. She closed the door behind her, gently but firmly, and locked it. The click echoed louder than it should have. She moved to her desk in slow, practiced steps. Not with grace, but with weight. The folder met the oak surface carefully, like setting down porcelain. Morning light filtered through half-closed blinds, casting long bars across her diplomas and the worn edges of memory. Between the certificates hung a photo. Her father, Lent Harold Shepard, 28, dress uniform. That uncertain smile he always wore in pictures. Beside him, slightly blurred, stood another man, broader, helmet low. His face half-turned, like the past itself was trying to stay hidden. Her breath slowed. From the bottom drawer, she pulled out a small black lockbox. She hadn't opened it in years. The key waited in her jewelry box at home, but she always carried a spare, just in case. Today was that case. Click. Inside, the letters were still there, bound in a navy ribbon, yellowed at the edges, still smelling faintly of ink and field dirt. One envelope bore her name in that familiar slanted hand. Evelyn, age 10. She didn't touch that one. She remembered every word already. Instead, she found it. April 1971. Her father's writing, rushed but sharp. The corner still smudged with oil and dirt. A thumbprint. Delaney ran through mortar fire to get to me. If I don't make it home, find him. She exhaled hard, the kind of breath that had waited decades. Morgan Clayton. It wasn't a common name. And paired with that middle initial, that unit, that city, it wasn't coincidence. She sank into her leather chair, heart pounding now behind her calm. Her chambers were warm, but she rubbed her hands together. Nerves, yes, but also something else. Obligation. Downstairs, the courthouse hummed like any other day. Coffee cups on dashboards, shoes on stone, conversations that would be forgotten by lunch, but not this, not him. She picked up the docket again. Room 2C, veterans shelter, loitering near a heater vent, 30 degrees that morning. She imagined him outside, same coat as in the photo, same look in his eyes. Her father hadn't made it home, but maybe, just maybe, the man who gave him those final minutes had, and now he was in her courtroom, waiting. The name wasn't just familiar, it was him. Judge Evelyn Shepard sat frozen behind her desk, one hand curled around a chipped ceramic mug that read Ashfield Rotary Club, her father's old coffee cup, the same one he'd given her after that. County barbecue when she was 8. The same aviators he wore that day were buried with him 2 weeks later. The coffee inside was cold, bitter, like the morning. She barely noticed. Should she recuse herself? She'd presided over murder trials, corruption cases, federal rackets, but none of them ever made her chest tighten like this. Objectivity was law. But what about debt? Her fingers drifted to the letter in her robe pocket, the one her father wrote from the jungle. If I don't make it home, find him. 30 words, burned into her life like a brand. Evelyn stood, slowly, deliberately. She folded the letter with the kind of care reserved for folded flags and tucked it deeper inside her robe. Her hand lingered there, just a moment longer than it had to, anchored, in unfinished thanks. If it's him, she whispered to herself, I've waited long enough. She stepped into the hall. The bailiff stood at attention. No words were exchanged. The doors opened. The room shifted. Laughter died mid-breath, not out of guilt, but protocol. The judge had entered. She walked to the bench, calm and upright, but with something behind her eyes that hadn't been there before. Mr. Morgan, she said, eyes now locked on the man in the second row. Where did you serve? He hesitated, then spoke, voice dry as dust. Da Nang, 69 to 71, Echo Company, 3rd Battalion. The courtroom didn't move, didn't breathe. The judge's hand, almost unconsciously, rested against the inside of her robe. I remember, Clay said next. Lieutenant Harold Shepard took shrapnel shielding his corpsman. We were pinned behind a burnt-out truck. I pulled him to the sandbags. Most of them were already gone. No one interrupted. The heater hissed. A flag fluttered outside the window. Inside, the silence was sacred. What happened next? The judge asked. Clay's eyes didn't rise. He was medevaced out before sunset. I never knew if he made it. Then, a chair scraped. From the second row, a man stood. Gray hair, Marine League jacket, cap tilted just so. He did, the man said, gravel in his voice. For 2 more weeks, and that man, he pointed, saved 6 of us. No gasps. just a breath, a shift in air, like the whole room leaned forward together. Then Luis Moreno stood, unplanned, holding a black and white photo in his hand. My father told me a man named Morgan carried him after a mortar blast, never saw him again. But he said, Luis's voice cracked. If you ever find him, you thank him. Clay turned, just slightly, just enough to meet Luis's eyes. Something passed between them, not memory, but recognition of something deeper. The judge stood. No words, no theatrics. She raised her hand and saluted. The room didn't clap, didn't cheer, it stood still, and in that stillness, the weight of history pressed down, soft and undeniable. He didn't salute, not because he refused, because after decades of being invisible, the weight of sudden recognition was too much to lift. Judge Evelyn Shepard's hand dropped to her side. Her voice cracked. This court will recess. Sergeant Morgan, I'll see you in chambers. Clay stood alone as the courtroom doors opened, not with judgment this time, but with honor. The echo of polished shoes on marble sounded different. Now. Rhythmic. Intentional. Each step carried the gravity of something long overdue. Sunlight slanted through the stained glass windows above, casting amber across the far end of the chamber. The room breathed in slow unison, as if even the walls knew something sacred was happening. The gallery had filled again, quietly, respectfully. Some had no idea why. Some came because someone at the diner whispered, "You might want to be there for this." But none left. Clay stood at the front, spine straight as best it could be. His hands relaxed at his sides, though his right thumb rubbed the ridge of that old medallion, the one he never let go of. He didn't see her return, but when Judge Shepard entered again from the side door, she wasn't alone. At her side, Colonel Mitchell Harlan, full-dress uniform, medals polished, eyes forward. Beside him, two younger soldiers in honor guard formation. Between them, a polished wooden case, brass latches gleaming. Colonel Harlan stepped forward. Newly declassified records from the Defense Review Board confirmed that Sergeant Clayton Morgan, Echo Company, 3rd Battalion, personally intervened. During an ambush outside Da Nang, April 1971, a few murmurs began. They didn't last. His actions directly enabled the survival of 6 U.S. personnel and the extraction of 3 wounded, under active fire. For decades, these events remained buried under clearance restrictions. He paused, letting the weight settle. But today, the Department of the Army, in cooperation with Veterans Affairs, formally acknowledges his actions. The honor guard stepped forward. The case opened. Inside, the bronze star with valor, and beside it, a presidential unit citation, unfaded, undeniable. The judge stood once more. For years, she said softly, this man walked our streets unnoticed, sat on our benches, drank our coffee, and was forgotten. She looked at him, not as a judge, but as a daughter who understood what her father never got to finish. Today, he is remembered. Red Kinley rose first, Marine League cap firm. Then Luis Moreno, then a dozen strangers, veterans, clerks, kids who once laughed. Even the prosecutor stood, hesitant, but honest. Sergeant Morgan, the colonel called out. Attention. Clay hesitated, just long enough to let time catch up. Then slowly he straightened, from the back. Present arms, and the room obeyed, not with sound, but with silence that roared. She didn't wear the robe. Not today. Judge Evelyn Shepard stood in a navy cardigan, hair down, a soft scarf looped once at her collar. In her hands, a weathered cardboard box, the kind that had traveled through time more than distance. "May I come in?" she asked. Clay nodded, stepping aside. No words. He didn't need them. She moved slowly through the small apartment, eyes catching everything: the spotless counter, the single chair, the folded paper on the sill. She set the box gently beside his chipped coffee mug. "These were my father's," she said softly. "He wrote every week. I thought maybe you'd want to read what he said." Clay's voice came quiet. "I never knew if he made it. I only saw him lift it out." She nodded, already opening the box. Her fingers found the right letter without searching. The paper had yellowed, the ink still holding. "April 18th, she whispered. 3 days before he died. Clay took it with both hands, unfolded it with the kind of reverence reserved for scripture. He cleared his throat once, then read. "Delaney pulled me through hellfire. I owe him everything." His voice broke, just slightly. But he didn't stop. He read it again, then folded the letter carefully. His knuckles went white, then relaxed. Across. From him, Evelyn folded a napkin. Once, then again. "My dad used to fold them just like this," she smiled faintly. "Right before pouring syrup on Sunday mornings." Clay nodded. "He talked about his daughter, said she liked to whistle when she read." "I still do." A knock at the door. Clay stood slowly. Familiar aches, familiar motion. When he opened, Luis Moreno stood there with 2 coffees and an envelope. "Didn't want to interrupt," Luis said. "Just thought, maybe this belonged to you." He handed Clay a black and white photo. Hospital cot. A young soldier bandaged. Beside him, a man in a helmet, half-turned, broad-shouldered. Clay's thumb hovered, then tapped gently. "That was me," Luis nodded. "My dad never forgot." They sat, the 3 of them. No one rushed the moment. 3 pieces of a puzzle that had waited half a century to come together. Evelyn handed over one final letter. Faded, nearly transparent. "With time. If Delaney ever crosses your path, treat him like the brother I never got to repay." Clay read it. Eyes glistening, but dry. He looked around. Not at the room, but at the warmth inside it. At the napkin. The coffee. The truth. Maybe I didn't disappear after all. The next morning, Clay Morgan walked through Ashfield in daylight. And this time, people looked at him, not past him. Sunlight warmed the flags draped over Main Street. The band tuned up down the block. Cinnamon cider lingered in the crisp November air. His boots struck pavement like a drum line. He wore pressed khaki trousers, a Navy service jacket, and a name tag that finally meant something. The bronze star glinted at his chest, flanked by ribbons once buried, now reborn. Children pointed. One boy nudged his dad. "That's him." The father nodded back. Luis handed out cider with a grin. Red Kinley passed out flags from a box marked VFW Post 1 or 13. Then at the podium, Evelyn stepped to the mic. "Each year we honor the known and the forgotten," she said. "But today we speak one name. Left silent too long." She turned to Clay. "Sergeant Clayton Morgan." Applause rose, not loud, but full. A girl saluted with a crooked arm. Clay returned it with a nod, then stepped forward. "I'm no hero," he said, "just a man who tried to do right. No speech. Just truth." Beneath the courthouse steps, a bronze plaque waited. Sergeant Clayton Morgan, 1965, 1975, never forgotten. One voice began to sing, then more. "God Bless America" rose through the town square. As the final verse echoed above rooftops, a folded flag was placed in Clay's arms. His hands trembled, but held firm. This story was brought to you by Stories Unseen, where silence is honored and the forgotten are finally remembered. If this moved you, please like, subscribe, and help us share it with someone who needs to be seen today. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for watching. Later, as the crowd thinned and the sun dipped low, Clay sat on a bench he once wasn't welcome on. A man approached. Old, Quiet. Welcome back, he said, and offered his hand. Clay took it. The leaves turned in the breeze, and the silence now wasn't empty. It was full of memory, of meaning, of a name that finally mattered.